No state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade.
That's true. She's using. I'm a little impressed. She's using decent truths in a way that's actually, she's not even skewing them. I don't know if that's part of her plan with her team tonight or not, but it's going well. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of all I wanted to say. She's telling the truth. This, that he literally said he did that. He planned on doing it before. That's what the explicit purpose was, right? Because abortion used to be one of the biggest issues the Republicans got, and then you give them Republicans exactly what they want, and suddenly they freaking hate it. Wow, who would have thought? Because they didn't care until it happened to them. Okay, and then they see look at all these women who are pissed off and don't want to sleep with me anymore. The consequences of my action? The consequences of my actions? What is this insanity? Look at all these women who are going to die out of ectopic pregnancies and can't get the help they need. Look at all these children being born into America who don't have the resources. Nope, no thought there. Just good to see that she's calling this out because it's true. He did do that, and I share. I share the anger and resentment towards that. And now the Republicans have it. Now it's just whatever, right? Now it's just excuse me. It's just another issue thrown into the wind. It's whatever. And that's it. In a similar way to the border wall was this incredibly ridiculous and xenophobic thing that the Democratic Party has unironically internalized and now actively supports. Man, I'm it's so hard not to be mad at Americans, okay? Because, I understand, nobody has the time to, talk and think about the stuff I'm doing right now, but, I'm telling, if you're not willing to listen to people like me, if you're not willing to, you are part of the problem, okay? And, these people here, I voted for Biden in 2020. I thought we need to get Trump out. I still, Trump's fucking terrible. He's really, really bad. True. Orange man bad. Yes. You're right. Liberals 100%. But I mean, after that kind of sealed the deal for me. Because it was my first presidential election, voting. I'm 27 right now. When Trump was running, versus, Hillary Clinton, I didn't vote in that election. Although back then I was a Trump supporter. Story for another day. So I only voted in one presidential election, and I'm only going to vote in one so far. I'm going to vote for other people in this upcoming one, but I'm not putting my name down for 2 people who enable genocide. That's my line. That's a very reasonable line that they both seem genocide is on the table for both of these parties, okay? And you're wondering why I'm getting mad at Americans, why I'm scolding them, right? Why okay, this is in the nicest way possible. This is a parenting issue, okay? That we are so indulgent, we are so narcissistic and petulant and insolent, okay? We have to address this, all right? I'm telling you, look, spend 5 minutes, look into what China has going on, and don't look for Western sources. Ask Chinese people, talk to them. Not people who are in America. No. Talk to Chinese people. Talk to Cuban people, not Cuban the states, okay? Talk to Vietnamese people. Talk to people who are the victims of our wars. People in the West Asia, Iraqi, Afghanistan. Talk to them, and they will tell you what America really is. They will tell you what has happened to them, their lived experience, not in some stupid movie biopic you watch, it's a Marvel movie just for our enjoyment. No, these have real effects, okay? And assuming my fellow Americans don't want more planes flying into our buildings, I assume you don't want that. I don't want that. Assuming you don't want that, right? You don't want more school. We need to address these things, okay? We are pissing people off, correctly so, and they're getting mad at us and doing things like that. And the only reason that they're relatively small tragedies. I mean, 3,000 people is not a small amount. By any means, but relatively small, in comparison to what we did to Iraq, killing over 1 million people, for example. It's relatively small tragedies affecting the empire. Yeah, I mean, it's going to go tenfold at minimum worse unless we get our shit together, okay? We have to start taking these things seriously. We have to like I'm a very like politically knowledgeable person, but like I don't even around people who are like slightly less knowledgeable than I am, but that are still very politically advanced, or people who are way more politically advanced. Like we should all be like listening and thinking. It's a lot more about developing your own opinions and thoughts than it is about being like politically knowledgeable. And if you go down that path more and more and just like you be willing to be wrong, but just try your best to like figure out what's right, you'll be in good hands. Okay. But until that happens, until we fundamentally change how our culture operates in this country, things are going to get worse. Like things are going to get worse. All right. Let's make some changes.
And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life.
Yep, exactly true, just like I was explaining.
Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President.
Yeah, I mean, so two major things here. It's a good style of attack. A lot of what she said is true. There are a couple things in there, like Trump wasn't always against rape, incest, and health of the mother, because that would require political instincts. And doctors need to conduct medical abortion sometimes, which surprise, Republicans and conservatives did not think about that, and so he changed his policy, right? Because you kind of have to make these concessions. Someone explains to you, this is dumb, do this instead because of this and this, and then you go, oh, okay, and then they do that. Okay, that's what happened. So it's a good way that Kamala Harris is like attacking this. A lot of what she said is true. Another comment on just like her optics. I think her optics are doing well. Just to kind of like, and I don't want to say give credit where credit's due, but like I'm just trying to analyze this objectively, right? Like she is doing a good job of like body language, talking. She's like, it's good to see that like, there's at least some soul to her, and she's actually going to like put some pressure on Trump, which she seems to be doing so far. However, really big problem here, that, it seems good at first, right? Because the government shouldn't be telling you what to do. Like, that's true. Like, the government shouldn't be telling you whether or not, okay. The problem with this argument is that the government should be protecting and ensuring your right to do it. They need to be providing resources. They need to be providing materials, okay? Abortion can't just be like a right to do something. It needs to be something provided for, subsidized, looked after, resources put into it. Something like Planned Parenthood, which people like to cite in the past as like, look at this place where people get abortions, but people go there to plan their parenthood. It's in the name, you illiterate fucks, okay? When you get rid of stuff like that, less babies get born, less healthy babies get, like, You dumb motherfuckers. Oh my god. Oh yeah. Okay, so there's like the conservatives being stupid about that, and then there's the liberals being stupid about this, where this needs to be a government issue. Okay, the government needs to be involved. Okay, you can't be like having like abortion be legal doesn't necessarily change back alley abortions, for example, right? It just changes whether or not the police, for example, are going to prosecute it, right? Kind of like drugs or like with weed, right? Cannabis, right? Like it's not. They don't sell it as a product, but it's not illegal, right? Whereas if it was legal, then you make it blah blah blah. But there's a huge difference there, and it's kind of similar with that, even if they are different things. So I think this is a huge problem. These kinds of positions are going to backfire. The Democratic Party is wielding Republican talking points, Republican policy plans with like pink washing, green washing. It's a very like liberal interpretation of like nationalist far right policies. I'd even go as far as to say fascist, but there's not like swastikas and brown shirts in the street yet, so I'm not allowed to call it that for some reason. I just think it's a huge, you're just shooting yourself in the foot, when you do stuff like that, because the government is a good thing. It is an entity of good. And when the whole point of it is that it's supposed to be an entity of good. It's bad when money gets involved in it, right? If you think what I'm saying is false, do you like working 7 days a week? You like not having sidewalks or firemen. You don't like medicine. You don't like clean food or clean water. Who do you think is ensuring those things? Do you think businesses are giving businesses can't even give you like clean food and like healthy food and water? It's like the only reason there is anything good at all is because of regulation. This goes down to like parenting. You think a child can just walk around and do whatever the hell? No, you need to be parented. Okay, and that's the government. Right? And so when we develop rhetoric in this country, when we surrender to rhetoric in this country, and we say things like the government should not, like, no, you're misunderstanding, very, very critically, very, very importantly, and it's going to hurt people. Americans need to properly understand that it's not just about making sure women have a right to do something. That's a very idealist way of thinking about things. If there was a dialectical or materialist analysis of things, you would actually talk about like how these are the real pressing issues that come with abortion in general, or states, or just governments or states, and oh my God, I can't. I have to like mentally prepare myself for the next one. I think there's like one more coming up, because this is just ridiculous. Like, the little small moments that are good are more like good moves, like a move in chess or something. It doesn't actually mean like moving your piece to this space. It's like a good moral thing. Both of these people are very, very, very terrible. Let's continue.
President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban, because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter, because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk?
Well, I won't have to, because again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea, and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free, but they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, want to give you.
All right. So while Trump is still like kind of pulling off a riff here and still being full of crap for the most part, what he's saying, like I'm like Trump is in an interesting way showing like unironic levels of political instincts, like in some ways. Even with like answering stuff right off the bat, like that was a good way to deflect the JD Vance question. Again, this man is terrible, okay? Like face the wall, right? In Minecraft. If he needs to be beaten in Hunger Games in Minecraft, right? But analyzing these things objectively, like he's doing objectively like a better job than in the past. And responding to that JD comment was good, which he's done that in the past before, but it's still like a good on the feet response. It's I got to be honest, man, like that argument about you won't need to, that's a strong argument, okay? Because they can't get anything done in Congress, which is also true, and Americans know that. Like, I don't know. It's weird seeing that like Trump has a pulse and he isn't just like, spewing nonsense, because Biden doesn't have a pulse, but he had nothing left in him. Yeah, that's like strangely, I'd even go far as to say I wasn't paying attention 100%, but it almost looked like it flustered Kamala Harris under the surface at least a little bit, because he actually brought up like a cogent point about how he won't need to, because they already did it with the Supreme Court nominees, and he, glazed them too. And then, it talks about how politicians don't do anything, which is also a, popular talking point for Americans. And even though Trump is literally the former president, people still kind of see him in some ways as like a, not a dark horse or a maverick. What's like the word? I don't know. Wild card is the wrong word. What's the word I'm looking for, man? I don't know. He's just very, he's very out there, as we all know. Oh man. Okay, that seems sufficient for now. Let's continue.
Your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand.
Okay, and to kind of give, some, again, objectively, that's a good way of, she's a sham, but like that portrayed legitimacy, okay? And I like that last part. I like how they're kind of raising the decency stakes. Tim Walz said this on the campaign trail a couple times in speeches a couple weeks ago. Different states, right? Mind your own business, right? Like stop in regards to like trans and gay kids, right? Like it's a very interesting pivot. It's trying to include a level of like morality that wasn't necessarily there, especially with Trump's version of conservatism and this style of American Republicanism. But it's good that she's kind of like, it's insulting. Like I literally said earlier, like I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems like it's not true. And yeah, she can confidently say, I'll double check. There might be like, I don't know, maybe there is, but like. I think that's a good strategy of just like being straight to the point. Like, she pointed, like the questioner brought this up. Women in America understand this. Like Kamala Harris understand this. And that kind of like finger wagging stuff can do well as long, that's going to backfire in the long run, because if Trump can, or like just any anti like Kamala like stuff can show that she's a corporate bought Democrat, that all that moralism stuff, especially when she becomes president, because she probably will. We'll see though. Things are a lot closer now, but we'll see what happens. She's she is going to show that there could be some differences about her, but that there is fundamentally not many. But we're gonna have to see whether that's true or not, whether or not she wins. And so, it seems like what's being said is true, and it's a good way of like kind of it's just a good way of handling the issue. I think there is a level of like, don't tell me what you can do, or don't tell me what I can do about it. That does need to be included. I'm just worried that can filter into like girl boss energy and stuff, which is inherently reactionary, and like bourgeois feminism and all that stuff. That's not good. That's bad. Which keeps going back to a lot of the points I keep saying throughout this recording, which is like things are gonna backfire. Like this is not necessarily a good idea. It's good for now, but yeah. All right. Let's. Yeah. So it looks like that's not true. Yeah. Looks like that's it. Let's continue.
What has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans? Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris.
I just want to say she's right about that last part, especially with red voters as well. Let's see what's about to happen, though.
Excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's
the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v. Wade,
Answer the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside, and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point,
All right, so two major things. First thing I just want to talk about is the border stuff. She did everything that I said earlier, and then just said all that stuff. Man, the fentanyl point. Fentanyl is not coming in through the border. It's coming in through traditional points of entry in the United States, ports, airports, stuff like that. White people coming across the border. This is not an immigrant issue. It's xenophobia to be talking about things like that. She did it in a way that wasn't directly look at all these immigrants coming over. She put it in a context of trying to help the border security out, which kind of goes to my next point of that was a really strong moment from her, if I'm being honest. I like she kind of gave a setup there. She's gonna I invite you to one of the rallies. Watch, go there, see how insane he is. Watch people leave her. That's really, really good. That's a really, really good way of attacking. And it works for someone like her as well, who has that prosecutorial, that prosecutor aspect to her. That's, just really works out well. So I think it's just funny how she literally did all that stuff about the border wall stuff. I was literally just saying, it's a red herring issue. It's just made up to be this thing that's a problem because immigrants come into this country. And we also destabilize their countries in Latin America. But it's just literally people coming here for an opportunity. They're literally just immigrating here like anybody else would. But now, since they're brown and the rapists and the drug cartel, again, racist, all racist stuff. Nobody says that stuff about Chinese. Nobody says that stuff about Ukrainian people, never. I mean, maybe they say stuff about Chinese. They're gonna eat dogs when they come here, whatever racist nonsense, right? It's racist, and the Democratic Party is unironically embracing that. She's literally saying we need a strong person in office, a strong man, which also goes back to my argument saying that she might, the powers that be might see her as the more stable candidate. It might actually be a more, economically successful and just politically and socially successful to support her than Trump. But we'll have to see what ends up happening with all that. It's just it seems like the Biden campaign and the Kamala Harris campaign both have a lot of anti-Trump routes that are good and strong, but unless you have real not just saying the tax credit stuff, but real policy changes and ideas. I don't know if this is going to work. Excuse me. I don't know if this is going to work in the long run. I don't know if it just seems like it's going to backfire. Americans are very not intelligent at all. They're very, very ignorant, but they're good at detecting when something's BS, when something's not true, their disbelief and disempowerment with the system is very justified. They're intentionally rendered ignorant. They're not biologically, or ethnically ignorant. Kamala Harris is gonna, buy a lot of people. A lot of people are gonna buy right into that. Go in, and even as I said, that was good how she grilled into him and stuff, but. It takes just, a poli-sci nerd or whoever it is to be no, this and this and this and this and this, because it's a whole lot more nuanced, but that's less sexy and less fun. And Trump is so bad, and Kamala, Mamala, girl boss Brad Summer, right? I can't criticize Democrats without somebody being what's this Republican doing? And I can't criticize Republicans without everybody thinking I'm a liberal or something. Again, yet another indication that there's a lot of things going on that need to change in this country. Let's continue.
I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
Yeah, I mean, so, pretty obviously ridiculous stuff from Trump, racist too, and just wrong, like, as I've said in so many ways. But what's interesting about this is that it showcases exactly what I am talking about with the fact, like, look at how, I forgot what this dude's name is, this interviewer. He's like a famous anchor for, looks like ABC. I forgot what his name is though, man. And like Trump is Trump, he's a little bit of a weasel sometimes, and he's insecure, he's a human being in theory, at least. So he's going to be, but when it comes to like portraying like confidence and strongmanning and stuff, like that's for the most part, that's along a lot of his like spiel that works a lot for him, and it's really strong. And when he does this in this moment, right, where he's like interrupting and kind of, then the interviewer is like, this is just what they said, and Trump can just say, well, he said that, but I saw, like there's an unhingedness to Trump that the status quo in America cannot grapple with. They cannot. This feeds into reactionary and fascists and conservatives, and they see him as like, yeah, Trump, go get him, because they think of themselves as dissent, and pretty next level like delusion. There's no way else of calling it. Crap. Where was I going with this? Trump strongman. Nonsense, racist points. Republicans are going to buy into stupid nonsense. Crap. I forgot where I was going with this. If there's something else I wanted to add. Just the fact that, just the fact that, like, these, like, they're not going to be able, like, if an interviewer can't, like, tell Trump to, like, stop and get a hold of himself, like, how, like, you can't get Donald Trump under control. And even Kamala's, like, chastising and stuff, even if it is, like, correct, it's very performative and calculated, and he's, like, she maybe she's trying to avoid directly confronting him because he's such a fucking unhinged mess and he can do whatever, but I just wish there was a lot more like direct, dealing with what he's saying, even though he's just spewing nonsense nonstop. And I'm sure she knew that was what's going to happen. It's just, I don't know. It's just weird. It's just weird. Like, why is the American bourgeoisie coalescing around Democrats? Like, what's going to happen to the Republican Party? Like, are they just, I don't understand what's going on with that. But it's very, very clear, at least in this argument, in this context, you know, Kamala Harris is like, she's the same old. She's Biden. It's just not old and senile. She's competent. Everybody can go back to what they're doing, but Trump is like this glaring wound, this stain. Trump is like the festering cancer that liberals refuse to deal with in this country. They complain about him, and they, you know, oh, you know, I mean, again, there's like racist Trump supporters and stuff like that, and they're stupid. Like, that's all true, but it's coming from elitist points of like people who don't know anything. They like gay people and black people, but they don't know how to actually fight for these things correctly, and they're all labor aristocrats, because this is an empire. So I just think it's kind of weird to see that that Trump is, you know, like, I don't know. We'll have to see. There's a lot more in store, because so much has changed now that like Kamala Harris is the new, just like literally out of nowhere, right? Like, it's not like she had a primary, right? Like where they it's not like we had a primary. We had like a whole process, or at least in theory we'd have a process, because the Democratic parties aren't even, like, the primaries in general aren't Democratic. There's nothing Democratic about them. We had nothing. We had none of that. They just gave her this, and they just sent it on the way. And that, like, I'm telling you, like, that keeps telling me that like they are relying on Democrats being like this new you know, face of America, because like Trump has been so unhinged and stuff like that, and they need to get things more under control, and if they want the show to keep running, or at least Americans to like not question stuff, or like to keep being slaves and not, you know, because Kamala is in office, right? Like Donald's, as long as Trump's not there, right, we're okay, you know, like that's. It's a very like exhausted, like starvation based way of looking at politics. Americans are so conditioned and used to being, I guess it's kind of a revealing statement there. It's, Americans aren't, they're very, very, they don't have the self-worth to know that they deserve better, that they can have better, that's possible. It's often easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism. But capitalism was just like the mandate of heaven, and feudalism and slavery, just another thing that came and went in history. So there's a very real like imagination and perspective and personality and vibe issue to this that I keep going back to. And I can't help but keep pointing out that the Democrats are taking right-wing turns, they're taking nationalist turns, adopted right out of the Republican playbook. But it's just interesting to see that they're, you know, It's like there's like a line that's being towed, and then they just kind of like, well, you know, Trump is so unhinged that they'll just kind of like have the Democrats co-opt a couple issues, right? Like supporting Ukraine, like this. Oh my God. God, Democrats are so dishonest, and there's like so much like Republicans are just like, yeah, black people, screw them. Am I right, guys? And like millions of Americans are like, yeah, but there's so much, you know, it's like Malcolm X said, right? Like they're like foxes, you know, trying to hide their teeth through a smile, and they're just as warmonger-like. So, you know, it's probably not unique. That's the thing here. It's like it's probably not unique that Kamala Harris is becoming like the elites and richest darling in comparison to Trump, because of, you know, all these reasons that I'm explaining. Let's see what her response is to all that nonsense. I mean, dude, eating dogs and cats, like, what is this? Like, you know, I'll have to like see some of the normie reactions, because there's like, I'd be surprised if that's landing well. And yeah, I mean, even though the interviewer was like, that's, you know, the city manager, like that answer will work for liberals, right? The city manager, he's going to read it from a piece of paper. The city manager told us, like, through this, you know, but Republicans can just be like, that's nonsense. Some woke gay queer said that, like, blah, 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 you know, and then nobody does anything. And then liberals are just like, that's nonsense. And then they just like turn the other cheek and do nothing about it. Okay. Like, this is, you know, it's two people who have like personality differences, but fundamentally do not have that significantly different politics. I mean, Kamala Harris literally 4 or 5 years ago was like, shame on Trump, border bad. And like within 2 years, she said, don't come here to immigrants. And now she actively supports the border wall. I don't even know. All right, let's continue.
You talk about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and
Yeah, I mean, if everything I just said about the liberals becoming more conservative didn't seem obvious, she's literally telling you right now. So if you're like you're wrong, like you don't deserve free speech, okay? She's telling you right here. I had 200 Republicans sign off me. Dick Cheney's wife, Mitt Romney, President Bush. What? These are war criminals. Fucking John McCain's dead. Like, right? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure John McCain's dead. This is like, oh, she's saying she worked with these people. I said, yeah, you would not be flexing bipartisanship and working with Republicans unless you were more interested in becoming more conservative and Republican. That's just the way that it is. They're going to adopt economic policies, state policies, military policies. They might not adopt the culture war issues, right? Because I think, we'll see in due time how this happens. But like, people like to be themselves, in case you didn't know that. And when you tell people like you can't be gay, you can't be queer, you can't, like, they're gonna get mad and they're gonna stop. They're gonna be like, who are these people that are telling me this? They're gonna see the Republicans and they're gonna be like, fuck those guys. I'm gonna go to the other party that's available, the liberals. And liberals will say, they'll do lip service, right? They'll talk about these things, but Biden had President Obama had years to try and pass like anything, just like literally anything at all, anything from an executive order standpoint. Maybe he was under too much fire at the time, but that's kind of a pussy response to me. He could have done anything at the time to make abortion protections, right? Same thing with Biden. When Biden first joined in the presidency, they had majority Senate and the House for the first 2 years. Did nothing. They literally did nothing. They barely had that student debt thing like Trump mentioned, which was also true that they barely had, and it was an insult and a lie. But, I mean, he's just saying that because he's also a liar. Look, like, if you can't see that Kamala Harris, like, flexing, working with Republicans is literally proving everything I've been saying in this video, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I can't, humanity cannot keep relying on, like, Americans deciding to care about things, okay? Like, the rest of the world is trying to grow up. And you guys are like trying to tell me that like this is just the way that it is, and like Kamala brought summer. No, she's a girl bot. Like, no, guys. Okay, like, or even some people thinking that there might be a better chance of stopping the genocide in Palestine. Which, if you believe that, you should not be allowed in politics. And there is a very, very prominent political figure who I will not mention right now in our left space who was saying such nonsense. I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but I don't know. It's just gross. This is so like, America is so cooked. I'm so disappointed right now.
Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump will give you a quick.
Very, very interesting way of setting up this argument. But again, she's literally just proving everything I'm saying. Like, if Trump's cabinet, some of Trump's former cabinet members are saying all this stuff, right? And then Kamala can use some of these endorsements, right? She's literally getting support from Republican politicians. All of this seems like, right, like, wow, Trump really is that bad, right? I mean, she mentioned, like, forgot who said he'd be a threat to our democracy and our system, right? Our America would not be able to handle another Trump presidency. Dude, if one Trump term can destroy America, like, maybe America needs to be destroyed, okay? Like, if all it takes is one obnoxious orange businessman to destroy the most powerful, richest nation in world history, like, maybe you deserve to be destroyed. Okay? And like, we can't have, this is exactly what I am talking about. Okay, we can't have a conversation. We're so focused on like black woman president that we can't realize the Constitution is bad. You should have contempt for the Constitution. Should you have it in the way for Trump? No, of course not, because he hates the way that he can't do whatever he wants. But you should hate the Constitution. It was written by rapist slave owners of black Americans. White fucking annoying rich people with itchy wigs and 7 years sounding ass motherfucker. Fuck them, man. Like incest breeding, like, you know, invisible sky. Like I can't take this. I can't, like, that's what the Constitution is made out of. Okay. And you should have it. But since Kamala Harris is the status quo, the powers that be, you see what I'm saying? Okay. And like, look how Trump stepped out of line. You know, look at how you were too extreme, right? Don't you know you're supposed to lie about all these insane things? You know, aren't you supposed to at least lie that you care about American people? Like that's what she's saying. Okay. But since Trump and the cultural spectacle around Trump is so fixated and occupied, living rent free in liberals' minds, it becomes, you know, missing the forest for the trees. I think I'm using that expression right. Or is it the other way around? Whatever, man. Like, you know, you're hyper focusing on something when there's other issues at hand, and it's only with a revolutionary perspective, a dialectical perspective, materialist historical perspective, you can make these assessments and analyses, because when you don't, that's how you reach the conclusions that, you know, liberals and even official, like whether they're voters or officials, you know, kind of like end up in that mental space. Man, being like, dude, Liz Cheney supports me is like, that'd be like saying, oh, Henry Kissinger's wife is my best friend. It's like, bitch, what are you, what? Like, what? Americans are becoming more right-wing, including the liberals. And I'm telling you, like Trump, people don't hate Trump for the wrong reasons. They don't like Trump because he's obnoxious and annoying. When they should dislike him because he is like a terrible person, but he is very much a product of America and like a response to Obama, Biden, Clinton, even Bush in some ways. You know, because again, these parties are criminally similar, have been criminally similar, especially since like Clinton, for example. You know, Clinton and Joe Biden being prominent during that time, for example. You know, that's when 80s, 90s, you really saw like neoliberalism. When the Democrats, you know, all became even more right wing as the first time, but now looks like we're seeing yet another shift even farther towards like this. It's just insane listening to a rhetoric sometimes. Like, I mean, like the Democrats are good at abusing the rhetoric of like, we need to care about the American people, and look how Trump only cares about himself. He's so crazy, you know. You know, it just popped in my head. Like the powers are going to make an example out of Trump, and they're going to be, you know, they'll be like, you know, he's essentially like the reactionary response to the status quo instead of like a revolutionary one. And he's like too fascist for Americans, right? He's like too much, you know. Don't you know you're supposed to be like way more? I'm getting angry just thinking about it. Like I'm 27 and I'm getting older. I'm not old, but I'm getting older. And I've been around like for a while now. I've been politically invested since I was 14, so it's like 13 years of political investing and stuff like investment. And you know, I'm still a young person. There's like all these people who are like way older than me who lived through all that stuff and saw it just like I did. And you saw the Democrats do not care about you. You saw that. You saw that they will do nothing, that the things that they do are like calling it the bare minimum is, you know, Democrats are like, Republicans are like a dry atmosphere, and then like you move to a humid area and the Democrats are like, look at all this water in the air for you. Like, aren't you hydrated now? It's like, bitch, I'm hotter. It's hotter here. You know, it's more like the breadcrumbs have become so savory to such a starving people that this is sufficient. When it shouldn't be at all. You know, I don't know. It's very clear that like the Democratic Party strategy right now is to, you know, just like appear strong, go after Trump strong. It's very reactionary. It's very, very, very reactionary. They're not trying to toe a new line because, as we know, for example, AIPAC is very interested in continuing genocide. Yeah, I mean, and man, I'm sure she has some of that money in there, for example. Like, that's, there's no difference between these people, guys. More Palestinians are going to die. More people in general are going to die. Like, your lives will not improve. And if they do improve, it'll be so minuscule. And if they do improve significantly, what's to say that it won't be like FDR and they'll just overturn everything? Okay? All that progress was thrown out the window the moment the rich in this country were like, I don't know, bro. Okay? And they can just keep doing that and doing that, draining institutions, draining the resources, just making them as anemic as possible, to the point where they're basically just completely incompetent and useless. And then, of course, weaponizing that and being like, look at how useless the government is, even though they intentionally rendered it useless. But we'll see what the Democratic response is to that, though. If you could even call it that, these like, I don't know, man. Like, we're like, the issue is that the Republicans don't have like a real identity right now because they, things coalesced around Trump so significantly, even though Trump was so against his other candidates during the primary, and not in like a Bernie Sanders way, because Bernie Sanders is willing to kiss ass, right? No, Trump is like defiant and obnoxious, and so everyone's like, wow, look at that guy. But all it has to take for like 2 seconds is to be like, just because he was insane, and that was insane during that time, doesn't mean that like things weren't getting worse in a way that's traditional with Democrats or Republicans getting their presidential terms, right? Winning office. There's no real concrete difference. I can't stress this enough. Like, we need something new. And anybody who's not, if you don't support that, you are part of the problem. Period. End of discussion. Let's continue.
Quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those.
I'm eating nuts right now, honey roasted cashews. So if I sound weird, sorry. But I'm pausing the video right now because I want to say Trump should not be bringing this up, man. Trump should not. More soldiers in Afghanistan died under your presidency, my friend. Like, significantly more. We're talking like school the other team out of the park, like no contest. That's a bad point to bring. I don't know why he's bringing that up.
Top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people.
Yeah, another thing to add here. I think she should be she's clearly not as present as she should be, because if she was, she would be more organically reacting to what he's saying, displaying her facial reactions, being like, oh, what is this? What, are you seeing this? But she's like doing the strong thing, and it's not, I mean, she's kind of like getting into him. She's like calling him out, kind of, but I don't know. She's not really giving off like a prosecutorial vibe, She's giving off like a ass kissing vibe. I'm gonna do what my Democratic donors tell me. She wants to be. I mean, Trump. We all, whether you're a liberal, centrist, even like a Trump hating Republican, like we all agree, right? Like he's bad, but you have to choose a correct way of going about this, or we're going to have a way, way, way worse one, okay? Because everybody saw Bush, and they're like, wow, how bad can it get? And it's like, it can get bad, okay? And it can get even worse. So we need to take that stuff seriously. But she should really be, showing her reactions, showing to people that, like, don't you find this ridiculous too? And she's not.
That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any sitting president in history by far.
Yeah, he's used this point in the past. But of course, like, not only did Biden win, but like, I'm talking like he won by at least 4 million votes. Okay. Like, I think it's more than that. Like, here, hold on. Yep, I was right. It's 7 million. It's 7 million more. He had 7 million more votes than Trump. God, Christ on a cross. Oh my God, this job is so exhausting. One of the biggest reasons that this point gets brought up, because everyone's like, wow, look at how many people voted. Look how many. It was mail-in ballots, jackasses. Okay, it was the first time that we could everybody was sending in mail-in ballots because there was a COVID everywhere. And so everyone's like, well, I mean, if I can just sign this little piece of paper and send it in, I guess. And it made voting way more accessible to people, which, from like an evil perspective, the Republicans are like, we can't do that, because if more people vote, they vote like, liberal leaning or left leaning. It's just true. So they wouldn't want stuff like that. But 7 million, 7 million more. I mean, he's right about saying it's the most, it's a way to skew facts and statistics. But, dude still lost by 7 million votes. And the only reason these were such record numbers is because, A, Trump's presidency was insane and everyone was like, wow, please get this guy out. And then the mail-in ballot voting with COVID to throw it in there to kind of stew the pot a little bit, right? It's like a nice little ingredient to mix things up. And so, that's why he's saying it like that, even though it's a very disingenuous way of saying it in very typical Trump fashion. Let's continue.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President
Man, oh man. Yep, so Trump's just saying more nonsense, as always, as usual. He literally said earlier, like, bringing immigrants here is a good thing. And there's Milton Friedman has, like, this very cynical, video or lecture on why quote-unquote, illegal immigrants are a good thing. And it's because of the way that, like, economic impact works out, that's a bad. Let's try a different angle. Immigrants have been coming in America for forever. Okay, from all different kinds of areas. This is like a made up issue. That's like not true, and the issues that keep compounding it and making worse are because of the United States. Whether it's our foreign operations into some of these like Latin American countries, for example, or if it's the domestic policies and how we run these things, trying to build a wall, the Border Patrol being incompetent, the state authorities in general, whether police, National Guard, military, all being incompetent, et cetera, et cetera. This country's casually collapsing and everyone's acting like it's not. It's just disingenuous points, all nonsense. I don't know. Like, it's a shame that Trump's degeneracy is only an opportunity for liberals to gain more power, because this is some real, some people are like Trump's our Hitler, and I think that's a little bit too far, but I don't think it's not inaccurate. It's not wrong. He is that kind of, he is bad, but I don't think Americans understand, like, we are a Hitler nation. Excuse me. Guys, I'm telling you, like, spend 5 minutes looking into the stuff the United States does, and you will be horrified. Jakarta method stuff, Iraq occupation, Vietnam, Korea, gee, God, oh my God, I could just keep going on. And that's all within, like, recent history, right? Like, none of that's including what we've done to indigenous people, Black Americans in the past. This nation is built on, like a level of domination you could not believe. Some estimates about how many indigenous Americans died during, like, the disease and genocide, like, that entire time, 175 million. Like 150 million up to 175 million. 175 million indigenous Americans were slaughtered, just indigenous Americans, just for sake of, like, getting territory and conquest in the United States. Okay. There's some, like, real perspective issues here that are getting in the way, and we're not gonna be able to have a conversation about all this stuff if this is the kind of stuff we're doing. And the new form of migrant crime thing it's just a new way of being racist. Like, everybody does crime, everybody. So why is it different when, like, somebody comes to your country and a foreigner doesn't? It's just a way to be xenophobic. Like, we have a new form of crime. Like, that's not true. Crime has been down. That's also false. Like, none of this is true from Trump at all. He's a dirt rag, worthless trash human being, in every way. It's just pathetic. I'm so speechless at how, like, loser these people are. Losers, like, both of them in their own ways. And and he didn't even answer the question at all, right? He literally didn't explain at all how they deport, so many. Oh, Lord. Oh, my God. Like, it goes back to what I was saying about abortion. Like, they don't think about these policies, man. Like, even the liberal interviewer for ABC is like, how are you going to make this work, my dude? Like, what's the deportation plan? When we do that stuff in this country, that goes so well. Just ask Japanese Americans when we put them in internment camps. When the Japanese Empire commits a war crime, and then Americans are punished for a foreign nation's action. That's always cool and fun. Yay. Let's just continue, because, like, there's so much. You could just, like, go on and on about, like, all the things that are wrong and need to be understood about this, and I don't want to get too swept up, I guess. So let's continue.
Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice President Harris,
the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me.
Yeah, you can see Kamala Harris is trying to get, like, control of things, and calling him out for being, you know, a criminal or felon or whatever is good. Mentioning all those crimes are good. You know, it's just like she literally brought up how like the status quo, right? Law and order moving forward, right? Like it's a good, you know, like Americans have these problems, right? But we have to keep the way that, you know, we need to go back to law and order, right? We need to keep the way things are, right? Like, oh, there's Americans are having so much trouble. There's so much problems, right? But in like a, you know, middle class can't pay their bills and like the Republicans take away abortion, not in like a, this country's collapsing and committing a genocide type way. I don't know, man. It's gross. It's just gross, you know? These are not like politicians. They're puppets. They're like smooth talking emperors running for office. And I really hope people can kind of see that, because, you know, Kamala Harris's issue with, you know, Trump isn't that like, you know, he's a product of things. He's a reaction to things. He's a response. He's for example, like a desperate call from like racist white working people, right? You can just pin it all on him, right? He's a criminal. He's insane. He's felon. Look at how many people he's fired. Like, you know, we need law and order, right? Look, he tried to defund the police. Like, a Democratic president is trying to shame a Republican, who again, he only tried to do that for his own purposes, and she's right to bring that up. But it's just like, it's just weird, you know? It's still weird, you know? It'd be like if she was shaming him for pulling out of Afghanistan because like the Taliban showed up and now look at all these women, and like, it's like, what? Like, what? It's, you know, Americans will be fooled into thinking that these like Harris talking points are sufficient, but I don't know. You know, from like that American perspective, like a not, you know, from like a brainwashed perspective, you know, she's like doing these things to win the optics game, but I don't think, you know, I don't know. I don't really know what these debates are for. Like, who hasn't made up their mind? Like, do they really need like another debate? They're like, oh, well, I was thinking Trump, but like who, you know, nobody asked that. Nobody. They just, oh, look, it's 2024. Oh, look, a debate's on. Let me turn on the TV. No thought, no thinking, nothing. Just consumption, like an audience member, a perpetual audience member, consumer workers. Oh, man. Yeah. You know, you know, oh, look at all these people he's trying to defund, right? Like, as if literally 4 years ago, we didn't just have like the single most widespread. Dude, Portland got police out for a month. They got police out of the city for a month. The George Floyd protests were easy. Like, I was like, holy shit, is revolution about to happen? Like, that's, you know, and then they added 200,000 new police officers. Biden administration, Democratic government spent more money, had more police officers set up, 200,000 new police officers, pay increases, resources, militarization. Democratic president, okay? Like, what do you want? Like, dude, I'm tired of having this discussion. This is not about like what's good anymore. It's about whether or not it's the Democrats or Republicans' turns to be assholes. That's what this is about now. And so it's just a dick measuring and a tug of war between like soy West Coast liberals who are like, just give me Mamala, give me my coffee back. Who cares about Palestinians? Or like Southern or like business conservatives who are like, Trump's just the greatest man. He's so smart. He's going to run the country so well. The economy was better because I said it in a poll. Like I don't see how this is going to like end well. I don't see how we get out of this without like extreme turmoil. George Floyd's death happened under a Democratic president, and 200,000 new police officers were added under him. Okay? It's textbook fascism, but since it's a Democratic Party doing it, it's like doesn't. Let's just continue. I'm getting so depressed just talking about this.
Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's
Just wanted to point out, it's just good to see that there's some pulse in Kamala Harris, because Trump has been incompetent and insane the entire time, and just trying to listen to a single one of his thoughts. I mean, I thought I was rambling. Jesus. Yeah, that's just good to see that she's got a little bit of a pulse on her, and she's starting to actually react to some of this. We got a long way to go, but yeah, just good to see that.
Let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again.
That it wasn't Trump. It was any U.S. president. It was any U.S. president. Okay, Biden, I forgot what he passed, emergency term limits or something like that, or whatever it was. But that it's for any president. Okay, it wasn't just Trump. This is what I'm talking about. She's literally trying to pin it on him. Excuse me, burping a lot. But that's exactly what the Democrats would do, if not more. I don't this, yes, the conservatives voted in favor of it and the liberals voted against it. And it's for President Trump to do, but Biden getting to send arms packages to Israel and vetoing any ceasefire stuff, that's okay, right? See what I'm saying? This isn't. It's all just the only reason it's because Trump makes people look bad and they remind people that America has a real problem. That's the only reason liberals have a problem with this person. Maybe you're yeah, he fucking raped somebody. He didn't, and I also hate him for that. I'm glad we agree on that. Okay, but then I bring up Gaza, right? And some liberals just single issue of it. Dude, you're a labor aristocrat and you deserve very dark things to happen to you if you don't care about a genocide. You understand that, right? We used to call these people Nazis, Germans, fascists, Romans, Greeks. Did we not have a discussion about this? Italians, Japanese, all that. They committed genocide, rape. You guys, you're cool with being those people. And just saying, if bad things happen to you, is history going to look at American? If Americans go down the drain, do you think the rest of the world is going to look at us and be oh no, look we lost America, we lost those oh no, in some ways yes, because there are there's a real real vein of humanity in America and in Americans. It is there. However, the empire is doing a whole lot of identity work, that's for sure, and screaming America at every outdoor movie theater and stadium game. Isn't exactly conveying a whole lot of sense, isn't exactly conveying a sense of safety and protection to people abroad, because they know what happens when Americans get too confident. And so I'm telling you, okay, as your fellow, to all my fellow Americans, you guys want better lives, right? You want your lives to be better and other people's to be better, right? Stop following these people. Stop being liberals. Stop being conservatives. Stop it. You don't have to become leftists, but you need to start thinking independently. You need to start realizing things independently. Okay? Because things are just going to get worse. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And you're going to blame communists like myself for not voting for a genocide enabler. But my dude, what did you do to stop a genocide? Nothing. So why should I care that Trump's in oh my God. I've been really wrestling with the one and only good anti-communist argument I have ever heard. The one that I can't defeat, the one that I can't refute. I don't have a good argument against it. And it's that people don't deserve communism. Americans don't deserve communism. That's the one argument I cannot defeat. I can't. I spend my every day arguing and defending for it and trying to fight and protect them, only for them to do every reason, to give you every reason to see them as the enemy, to root against them. Okay? And I assume to Americans, or because everybody who's not American who's listening to this is gonna be like, yes, like that's absolutely true. If you're American, you're giving me Pikachu face right now, okay? And you're acting like what I'm saying is falling out of the sky. Like you know why I'm talking about like this. How like we need to change, okay? Like change. Not Mamala. Are we understanding this? Do we understand this? Conservatives, you understand? Trump was not change, okay? You understand? Like no, you're okay. Yep. So like if your lies get worse, like I'm not going to care. Like you are voting against your own interests. You are perpetuating a genocide. And so if you can't pay your bills, like I'm supposed to care? Like you see how we don't win. You see how everybody loses when we follow your way of thinking. Just do it like our American way, just try to keep the status quo, nothing changes, right? Like no, we all lose that way. And y'all can't see that either. Like I can't, this is, oh my God. Please, whoever hears this, like I need you to try harder, okay? You need to try harder. Think, but like don't be afraid to be wrong. You know, people are slimy worms in this, okay? And I know I'm like chastising a little bit, but just be okay with being wrong, all right? And just think. Just ask questions and push forward. Be confident, you know? Don't let like Penn Shapiro losers be like, you don't know about the Crimea. And wow, you can't, you know, gatekeeping politics. Notice how I'm not gatekeeping politics. I'm kind of mad that people aren't like, I'm like the opposite of a gatekeeper right now. I'm a hype man or something. Like, please come join it more often. Like, I'm not trying to convey to you that you can't understand this. I'm trying to tell you that you don't care, that you don't put in the, like, and so why would you deserve better? Okay, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, if you turn the other cheek to a genocide, why do you not deserve dark things right now? Why should Palestinians die with your dollars, with your taxpayer dollars? We should pay for Nazis' healthcare in a proxy state, but we don't want to deal with any of our problems. You don't want to stop this? Okay, like, then don't expect people to care when things happen to you. Okay, and that goes back to my thing with the Republicans. But this is like liberals do not understand this in like a foreign policy versus domestic policy context, where Americans are just like, you know, oh, Vietnam was a mistake. Like we didn't just create an entire generation of people with birth defects. You know, oh, the North Korean War, we didn't really need to do that, right? 1 in 5 North Koreans died. Okay, the North Koreans lost 20% of their population in the Korean War. Does that sound like justice to you? Does that sound like a victory to you? Does that sound like no? The answer is no, okay? And so I need all Americans. I need you to sit and think and internalize. We do not deserve better, okay? And you understand that, right? Like when you don't care, why would you deserve better? All right? Please think about this. Like, please, guys, we COVID is going to be nothing compared to what's coming if we do not get our shit together. There's no way around this. Please heed my words. Please.
Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy
President
with a fake
Trump,
Russia investigation
We do have a lot to
that
get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking.
Democratic president is bragging about increasing licenses for fracking. Oh my God, this is exactly like the abortion issue, right? Where it's like the government should not be involved. Like, you are misinterpreting this issue. So why should planet Earth get to be poisoned because Pennsylvanians don't have a job anymore? Why should we allow that? Why should anyone in the world care about what Americans have to deal with? They don't have a fracking job anymore. Oh, that's so hard. That's so tough. What are you gonna do? Find a different job? Okay, that's the heartless reactionary sentiment, right? But it's mocking from a place of legitimacy. Okay, because why would anyone be okay with Americans getting to do more pollution because a couple thousand people needed jobs? This is. Kamala Harris said it herself. It's like, oh, I'm in Pennsylvania, so that's why you're bringing this up, and that's why I'll talk about it. It's like, yeah, girl, we understand that you have political instincts, okay? If you're a person who thinks we need to keep fracking, you're very, very wrong. You're very, 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 very wrong. And here's why. The issue is not that, because I understand, right? Like you get rid of it and all those jobs go away, right? So spend federal money, not on Israel arms packages, not trillions of dollars on the military, none of that. Stop sending subsidies to proxy nations, okay? Spend our own money on our own things, and we will be able to deal with those problems. I just can't get over this. This is such a right-wing turn for a Democratic president. I don't. Like fracking it causes earthquakes. It doesn't even pay well. It's dangerous. Having like a 3-month job transfer program, spend a couple $2 billion, you're fine. Like this is a constant conditioning of we cannot do anything in this country naturally lends to discussions to being we can't do anything, but what can we do anyways? That will never be true. Scarcity is often like man-made. It's not even often, not always, but often like man-made. It's not a real issue, okay? And this is one of those situations, okay? Like capitalism already cannot guarantee full employment because it's not profitable to do so. Businesses only require an X amount of labor to complete said labor. Then it becomes they receive a profit loss if they hire too many people or whatever. So like capitalism cannot guarantee full employment. Already off to a terrible start. Not that anybody talks about that or thinks about that or addresses that. I'm just a filthy commie loser, right? Of course. But when Americans get to pollute the environment for like little to no pay whatsoever, and they're inconvenienced by like the change. Like I'm sorry, but no, Look, I'm gonna answer this if I was running for president, okay? Because I think it's pretty easy for people to be like, oh, it's easy for you to create. No, like I will show you, okay? You go down to Pennsylvania, you talk to every single person who works those jobs. You shake their fucking hand. You talk to them. You look them in their eyes. You sit down and listen to them if they cry. You treat them like a human being and not a constituency to win over. Where the planet needs to be punished because you don't want to talk about transitioning jobs out of something that's unhealthy into something healthier because it's too scary. Because Pennsylvanians are like hard asses. I mean, Pennsylvanians like they're tough Americans. They're very like underrated group of people. Well, they can also be incredibly racist and stuff like that as well. But in general, what I'm trying to say is that like an often looked over group of people, even though they shouldn't be at all. There's no reason to think that we wouldn't be able to transition out of this. Okay. And if my history is not entirely wrong, I should be at least a little. I think I'm a little right about this. When the Industrial Revolution was first beginning and stuff, like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, these two places specifically, I don't know if it was one specifically, I'm pretty sure it was both, started having massive pollution issues, waste issues, blah, blah, blah. So they had to kind of like, rehaul some things, and change some things, not enough, not well enough. But if they didn't want people like living in like a polluted, chat pile of like poison and waste, that requires government intervention, government resources. Your elected officials showing up to where you are, saying, "What can I do to help you?" Okay, Americans are so brain broken and conditioned. What I'm describing to you seems like an alien civilization. Some of you are like, "Oh, that sounds like the Turin from Mass Effect," right? Like, no, guys, no. This is reality, and everywhere like that's not the West or the global North. You're so busy wondering like whether the Chinese government lied about their COVID numbers, which is a level of social issue of like really just stop and listen to yourself. Okay, why are you so obsessed with the Chinese government lying? I'll just put it this way: I've never, I had no idea Americans were they had so much trust in their government that they believed everything their government told them. I had no idea. Oh, you don't trust your government? Oh, Americans, you don't trust. So why do you trust what they tell you about China? Like this simple cognitive dissonance cure, nowhere to be found. Like this fucking YouTube channel that nobody watches. Like I'm saying it. I'm the person. Not even leftist figures in the space right now who are so much of the reason that I started doing this content. It's driving me wild. Like y'all need to be way tougher on this stuff, or otherwise this is how this slimy stuff gets through the cracks. Okay, we're so focused on stopping Trump-like fascism in politics, nobody's paying attention to this very like banal, like suit and tie dystopia and fascism that's now folding into the fray. This is just insane. I'm really, I knew the Democrats were taking a nationalist turn. I knew they were taking a right-wing turn. I did not think that they were taking this significantly. They even had the interviewers talking to them about how their policy positions changed. She's going to give a filibuster answer for sure. We'll see if she gives us anything of value, but it'll be filibuster, right? Even though, yeah, I mean, this is, oh my God, like. American politicians are a lost cause, and that means new system, and it's a matter of getting Americans to that point. And until you guys are willing to entertain that, you're going to keep falling for stuff like this, and you're going to think that it's like a legit presidency and these are real promises. And I'm telling you, even if they were, they won't be enough, and the problems are still going to get worse. And there are so many reasons why to explain that as well. Complicated. And those are just the reasons that I know, okay? Yeah, this is a complicated picture. This is difficult to talk about and think about, but it's not that difficult. And it's not so difficult that it's impossible to understand or overcome. I'm telling you, like if we just pull people together, bring people's ideas together, things work out more often than not. You start having healthy discussions and disagreements. Like that's how you get things, okay? Have two political parties in the United States who are run and bought and sold by the exact same wealthy people. Like, are you guys insane? I'm the crazy one for wanting revolution. I'm the crazy. Like, no. I don't think Americans deserve the status quo. If other people, especially, are always going to have to be like, paying the price for it. But now, as it's even worse, as fascism turns inward in America, and gets even worse and worse onto its people, with like the 200,000 new police units, for example. Like it's I don't know. This is very much like America's getting what it deserves. Like things are naturally concluding to where, like the Democrats have had 8 years now, 8 years to create someone or to get behind someone who would be sufficiently, who would be able to sufficiently defeat Donald Trump, right? They were so completely just like caught with their pants down that like Bernie Sanders was winning, right, in 2020. And so they were like, okay, when they really, right around Super Tuesday, once it was clear that like Bernie Sanders might actually gain a lead and he's gaining more and more, all the other Democratic contenders dropped out and they gave him positions and they endorsed Biden. You know, like I said, it was like a covert coup basically. And they put it around Biden. Joe Biden was again, this is the 2020 election. Think about this, okay? Again, another last minute change. Like they're trying to like get a hold of, not last minute, but like early on into the campaign. This is like March. So like very, very early, trying to make sure that Bernie Sanders, who was like the lead for a long time, would not get the nomination, right? Because even as a centrist imperialist, that's too much for the bourgeoisie of this country. Bernie Sanders, man, that's oh my God, I'm bringing this up. Bernie Sanders, like so many people think Bernie Sanders is a left. He's not, like he's revealed himself to not be a left-leaning person. And it would take me 3 more minutes just to explain that, if not longer. There's so much contradictions. There's so much misinformation, so much misunderstanding. You have to go through so much of it and sift through it and filter and explain, and it takes all of this just when like people can say nonsense like with no penalties at all. I don't know. America's cooked, guys. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about stuff. I'm just like one political like commentator and analyst, right? But from my perspective, like I don't know. I'm speechless. Like this is, I remember in 2020 when like, because things were bad in the economy back then, and we were like who's going to get rid of Trump, and so I remember just being like, are they really going to cash in on Biden? Like he's not even, his brain was melting even back then, the presidential debates were super weak and I can't. Oh my God. Let's just continue before I lose my mind.
My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increased by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President.
Yeah. A Democratic presidential candidate flexing the height of oil production in how many ever years, she said. Like, she could have just gone, like, the foreign oil thing, dude. Oh my God. Like, this is regression, reactionary takes, Republican policy. Yeah, using protectionism as well, which is also, again, not the free market. Not that anybody ever talks about that, because, getting they're talking about Saudi Arabia is what they're talking about, because the Saudis have been driving up prices, and the American government's like, oh crap, because they thought that creating a fake monarchy as a country would be a better idea than just making a puppet state, and now it's coming to bite them in the ass because the Saudis realize they can just keep charging us and charging us and charging us as much as they want, and that's just the Saudi oil, right? So farming or fracking internally, which again destroys the environment. Bring more earthquakes start showing up. It's on indigenous lands, and they make pipelines all the time, which is a human rights violation. And that's like not considering the safety hazards, the bad pay, the fact that we're literally bringing more. Again, the correct policy is a green transition. Excuse me. Where even like you could even like potentially like this. I mean, this is I don't know. Like you could potentially make an argument where you'd be like, okay, we're gonna do like 3 to 6 months of like all the stuff we've been doing, but there's gonna be a transition phase either during that or after that, so that by the time like the year's over or something, like we'll have all these different people in different jobs that aren't just trained for these fossil fuel jobs that need to be retired because of the system and how the economy needs to be green unless we want to destroy the planet. And I think focusing on like the costs of foreign, like, dude, I literally feel like I'm listening to like a Bush ad or like a Mitt Romney point or something. Like, I don't like, she must have Republicans working. Oh yeah, she did mention that. That's right. She said that a couple weeks ago. She'd be willing to appoint a Republican on her cabinet. I'm speechless. I am so disgusted with the Democrats right now. I'm speechless. We have done a full 180 from not 2016, from 2020. Border stuff, anti-green energy, Jesus Christ, like actively being like, we need fracking more, focusing on subsidies and middle class economy. Like what? This is unbelievable. I can't believe that. And so many people will be swayed by this. They'll think, oh, look at how strong she's portraying herself, how, blah, 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 blah. And if you have like literally any political knowledge whatsoever, like how are you not reaching the same conclusions I am right now? Like this is like, I'm speechless. Like she's literally, they're literally trying to make like the Democrats like the new face of stability, of like economic. Oh my God. Like what is happening? What is happening? Like, I guess it's because they don't have, like, Trump is just kind of on his own. And since he like doesn't have the connections that like Kamala Harris has, because she's a lot more cooperative and ass kissing than he is, so he burned all those connections, and she has a lot more resources at her disposal. But to see so much coalescence from a right-wing perspective, from both in policy, in rhetoric, not just both, but like in so many ways, I don't know. It's just weird to see. I don't know. I did not expect her to be like this nationalist. I'm genuinely speechless. Like Trump is the one who like set up the meeting, or like did the relations with DPRK in China, right? Trump is the one who who gave stimulus checks to America. Like there are like unironically like reasons that like people should vote for Trump over Kamala Harris. Like unironically, there are not many. It's like 3 max. But what I'm pointing out is that like the dissimilarity between the two campaigns eliminates the differences, obviously, and that then prevents clear identity platforms with each campaign, to where it can really bite things in the ass. It seems like the Democratic policy and strategy is to try and bring in as many like alienated and disillusioned Trump voters as possible, but this was not the policy in 2020. They stuck to, they stuck to more like progressive like terminology in politics. But I don't know if that's because like Trump just made things so exacerbated that they needed like a Democratic president to kind of like cull revolutionary fervor a little bit and see if that would like help at all, or I don't know. But like to see such a this is the only, she must have Republicans working on her campaign. There's no way like that has to be what's going on, whether it's speechwriters, advisors, something, because this is like, it's almost unreasonable. Like, I understand why they're doing these things, but I don't understand who's going to like be sold off of these things. I don't know. We'll see. Let's continue.
And Trump, your
Well, first of
response?
all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400,
President
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that
for
we
the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world, and crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., And the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
Man, yeah, I mean, it's just typical Trump BS and nonsense. Like, I could go through and say what was like true or false or whatever. I don't know. It's just kind of defeating the point. It's more noteworthy to point out what I was pointing out earlier is that they cannot get a control of Trump. The whole like it's a yes or no question. Like, the only reason you're saying that to Trump is because Trump is good at filibustering and bullshitting. But no. Like, what presidential candidate is just supposed to say yes or no without being like, a mindless lapdog of the rich elites? I'm telling you, man, like, just because Trump is bad doesn't mean there aren't aspects of Trump that Americans need. Like that interrupting, like, rude talk over you stuff, like, that could be used for good. That could be used in a good way. Okay. Americans need somebody who's going to like stomp over all of this and be like, screw you guys. Okay. We need to do something the right way. But Trump is reactionary and a businessman and conservative. He's a charlatan. So that didn't manifest in his way. But the fact that like they can't even get him to like answer a question straightforward, or there's no way to like, kind of penalize him. The fact that it's just a yes or no question, then they just give up and move on. Like, yeah. Liberals have nothing. They have nothing to deal with Trump. If anything, it's just like become more like him, adopt his policies. And they'll just try to be like, well, I guess if we become more racist, more Americans will vote for us. But the aspects that are like unconventional and unorthodox about him, like a lot of that stuff is needed. And just because goes to show exactly what I was saying, like liberals are more interested in like the show running on and bread and circus and not actual real change. Where conservatives, especially in this country, they understand something's wrong. It's just that they blame immigrants for it or whatever. Like they understand something's wrong in a way that liberals are just totally comfortable with the status quo. Yeah, man. I mean, Trump is a warning. Trump is a warning from the universe. He's a warning of the sin of wrath. And he's a warning to Americans. He said, this is who you are. This is what you are about. This is what you will do. What are you going to do about it? And Americans didn't have a good question for it. Many of them were like, yep, even myself when I was 19 also fell for it. There's no real response to Donald Trump. They think that because he's a conservative, Republican, what is this bizarre he's making, that he's a call for help from the American people, because they feel desperately unheard. And they literally relied on like this reactionary populist as like a last second adjustment to see if things would change. But of course things only got worse, and things got worse in like a Republican way. But since Trump was like crazy on Twitter all the time, liberals think it was way crazier than it normally is. Yeah, man, like it's okay for like Obama to blow up hospitals with children inside, but if Trump like makes fun of a disabled reporter, again, but bad, right? Like that's that's being ableist, and like he's hit real skewing of priorities here, guys. And the more and more we focus on being like only two parties, we can't make any changes, only two parties, that'll never work. Like you're just gonna keep getting insane Republicans and useless Democrats. Like how has that not been true for over 20 years now? Oh, like maybe even 30, like longer than that. There have been more than one Republican president, or not Republican. There have been more than one American presidents in the past who have been elected from a party that was not one of the two traditional parties. It's literally happened more than once. And And that's not to include like the other things that might have happened, like Ralph Nader or Eugene Debs, for example. It goes back to what I was saying, right? If all it takes for Trump is just one Trump 4-year presidency to destroy democracy, like I don't think that's a democracy. I think you guys are lying to yourselves that it's a democracy, and you're not ready to accept that we're a fascist empire. You're not a democracy. If you were a democracy, why does your vote not matter? Why is everything getting worse and nothing's changing? Why, like, dude, all Americans are like, my vote doesn't matter, and they're just like, oh, shrug it off, like, oh well, yeah, man, dude, we have to care. We can't just keep neglecting our politics and just like throw in a liberal who's gonna like say everything we like, but not actually change anything. Or have like an insane conservative like devolve the economy and other things. Yeah, I mean, again, it's like I say, like it's, if this is what y'all are gonna double down on, and like so you're gonna sink your feet into the sand, dirt, wherever, like you're gonna really plant your feet there, and this is the hill I'm gonna die. Like, okay, but then like when everything continues to get worse and your children die into school and you can't pay your older student or your older kid can't pay their student loans, and your other kid's got a fentanyl addiction, and you have no real connect. Like, yeah, dude, I'm really, really glad that we didn't do what you said and made real change. God forbid. So no, and hence why I am like borderline arrogant about my opinions like this, becoming just so, I don't even like how nasty I have to get sometimes, but I feel like if I don't do this, y'all are just going to keep eating up milquetoast garbage, because you 100% will, whether you're a conservative, liberal. I've even seen way too many leftists get comfortable with all kinds of stupid BS these last few months and years. Whether it's the Gaza stuff and Palestine stuff, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's watching the liberals turn more and more reactionary and nationalist by every day. It's all there. So the question is, are you going to help change, or are you going to be part of the problem? Let's continue.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
Not a whole lot to add. Typical stuff where, it's like she has not had a term, and when she was in power, she was vice president. So it's Donald Trump has like a record to Like we didn't see whether or not Kamala Harris, as a president, because she wasn't, would institute like more fracking, right? Because she was vice president. But we do know that Biden gave out more licenses and fracking permits than Trump did, which is, just one of the many things here. She's doing a good way of like attacking him and grilling him. She's kind of doing that whole, like, she said she would be a prosecutor and, she's going to go after Trump. And that's definitely what a lot of this debate so far has been about. But, it's a good point about January 6th, like inciting the white supremacists. She should have said white supremacists. But she should have said what they were saying as well, which was blood and soil. Because it's not just an anti-Semitic phrase, it's a white supremacist phrase. And if, I don't know why she's not bringing that up, but bringing that more, anti-Semitic has like lost some of its value because Zionists are like, if you criticize Israel once, like you deserve to die. I don't know if that's because like her husband or whatever, or like, I don't know, whatever it is, she should have said white supremacist. But these like angles of like, kind of pointing out the mistakes he's made, because he made a lot of them. Like, it's a good strategy. But like, I don't know, it's not going to, I don't know. We'll see what happens in 2028, assuming there's still a country here. But I'm not too, Kamala Harris had like, what does Donald Trump have to criticize against, Kamala Harris other than like, empty promises and like going back on our word? She has not been president, whereas everyone remembers Trump, and like, many Republicans are like, I don't want that insanity again. So, and you actually hear a lot of Republicans in America voting for Kamala Harris, and that's because of what I am saying, and that she represents the status quo. She's taking a right-wing nationalist turn. So are the Democrats in general. They have been for a while. And that's Trump. Trump is like, Trump is Hitler, right? America's Hitler, in the sense of he can mix up the pot, right? He's a reactionary, right-wing leaning person, and he can stew up the pot to make real change. Granted, it's bad change, but real change in this country, okay? Kamala Harris is the same. Her entire thing is about the same old stuff, doing she went back on her opinion of fracking. Okay, she supports farming fossil fuels more now. Okay, and that's not just her either. She's just the one who's saying all this stuff for this party platform. Yeah, I don't know. I really feel like, the powers that be are coalescing around Kamala. They see that the economy is stronger, public opinion, like the bread and circus vibes are more stable with Kamala Harris than with Trump. And I think maybe the bourgeois donors, PACs, whoever, billionaires, whoever it is, right? They can see that Trump is, he won't do what they tell him to do, which they might have done beforehand, before he basically burned every bridge possible during his presidency, because he's like a petulant child, kicking and screaming all the time. But now he has none of that, and he's basically by himself, and he's kind of like a strong man, and he's far right? And all of these qualities make him similar to Hitler. I'm not saying, he's pretty bad, but like Hitler is like uniquely bad, as we all understand. But he is Hitlerian in that sense of being like a potential real change, of a bad change to a system that's like demanding to remain the same. And so that's why I think you see, unironically, like Republican Party platform, like economic policy, like the family value stuff, the middle class opportunity economy stuff, like all that stuff's textbook Republican. I'm not just talking like, Republican, like it's textbook Republican stuff. Okay, it's not like it's centrist stuff or whatever. Like, again, centrists are objectively to the left of liberals, but since everyone thinks liberals are left, like the entire thing, we're already off to a bad start. There is like nothing. She's a right-wing politician. Period. End of discussion. And if you think that's wrong, you're politically illiterate, and people like me are not going to listen to you anymore. I mean, you can say that to me, but like I've been hearing that my whole life. People don't care what communists think. It's just that Gen Z is the most supportive of socialism in American history. We have never had a majority supporting socialism up until now. This is the first, within over a century of generation after generation after generation, and Gen Z is the one who is most preferring socialism, and that did not happen. I mean, after all, like the USSR collapsed, right, guys? Like, oh, look at China became capitalist, right, guys? Like, doesn't that mean we won? The wall comes down in 89 or 91 or whatever it was, and just 33 or 35 years later, whatever. America is reaching like next level regularly having crises, economies collapsing, inflation, fentanyl, bad education rates, bad literacy rates, we have a brain drain, we have massive unemployment, homelessness, high suicide rates, high addiction rates. People are spending way too much money on their housing, on groceries. People are like, what's the word? Partitioning, or like they're sampling, or like separating like their medication for things because medication's too expensive. It's $1,300 like minimum to get an ambulance ride in this country. Like that's how much my colonoscopy cost after my insurance, and that was. All of that stuff should be free. Like it's literally it's free in Israel. Israelis are like, kill Hamas, bomb Palestinians. Where's my free healthcare? Americans pay for free healthcare for Israelis, and we think we can't give it to ourselves. Like, guys, y'all need to change. You need to push and challenge the things that people tell you are just true, and we can't change them. We're not gonna, because things are gonna get worse unless we do that. I'm just speechless. This is unbelievable.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy, because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where Bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this,
I just want to take a second here. Like, he's just spewing and spewing and spewing and spewing nonsense and nonsense. Like, it's just nonstop. You can just vomit this and keep doing it and get away with it. Like, it's annoying me, and it's annoying liberals. That's how bad it is. We're in agreement about how annoying this is. He's just been doing this so much. Like, he just talks and talks and talks, and there's nonsense, and sometimes it makes sense, but it's just Jesus. It's bad. Jesus Christ. I mean, I'm mad enough at Kamala Harris, but like, I don't know. It's just he still somehow manages to like show he's even worse than you thought. Like, every day, it's just a terrible person.
talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate, because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border, because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right. You'll say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to.
Yeah, and like a big giveaway that the liberals are like subhumans who don't deserve like any rights at all. I'm being so cruel because she finds this amusing. Like, this is all just a joke. Oh, you guys are like, it's so funny that this like brain broken, racist, bizarre, like just a product of America. Like, everything that America is in a person. And Americans just think it's so funny. He's so amusing. He's so bizarre. What is he even saying? The character of it is like getting way too like this is, she'll have rhetoric about America deserves better than him or whatever. But I don't know, man. Like, there's a real air of like Trump is entering. He's gone because Trump was in the whole like nobody takes it seriously, and then he won, and everyone's like, oh shit, like we have to take it seriously, because they didn't, because they're liberals and they're elitists and they're smug and they're shitty, and they're literally everything that's wrong with this country. It's just that conservatives are like somehow managed to be even worse than that. Man, and just seeing so much Trump's nonsense spewing, seeing that this is just like a joke to a politician, like, oh, he's just so wacky and bizarre. Like, y'all should be proactive. Like, China executes corrupt billionaires, and Donald Trump can just talk like nonstop in front of potential presidential candidates and like presidents and other stuff, and like in front of news interviewers and anchors, like just talk and talk. Again, I'm telling you, like, there is no liberal response to Trump, because Trump is a sickness, a festering like cyst that's a product of America. I've heard like people say that he's like the reaction to Obama, right? Like the racist reaction to it. Like, that's true in many ways. It's still liberal analysis, but it's still true in many ways. And all of this is just because analyzing like listening to communists was just too much for you guys. It was too dang much. I'm glad you guys have Trump though, and Kamala Harris, and school shootings and a genocide, and it's so good that you didn't listen to leftists. What would we have done? What would we have done? I'm trying, guys. I understand that the correct emotional reaction to Americans is resentment and anger. I'm surrounded by 320 million, potentially 8 billion people who disagree with me and think that, America, they're working people, they're just not like, yes, yeah, no shit. But they also have unbelievable amounts of privilege and security and peace and safety in a way that it's artificially propped up. It's not real. Like, it's not a real thing. It's unsustainable. It's running on fumes. Hence how you get terrorist attacks and school shootings and stuff like that. You can only try to kill hope more, but you can't actually kill hope. And liberals have just, they find this whole, it's all so funny how 1,100,000 Americans died from COVID. It's just he's so silly, right? And that's what this is about for them. It's just a game. It's just they want to go back to brunch, and like they'll complain about Republicans being so gross and stupid, and they'll be right, but they'll be wrong from their perspective. And everything will continue to get worse around you. And as some of you have this discussion, a mass shooter will show up and slaughter many of you right in front of your faces, or we'll have a school shooting that's successfully prevented by police officers showing up to shoot the person. We'll have failed assassination attempts, billionaires drowning and exploding at the bottom of the sea. Yes, of course. It's a good thing we did not have communism. So good. So glad that we listened to you guys. Things are going to get way, way worse. And all I'm seeing from this is like, because Kamala Harris says stuff like, Donald Trump doesn't have a plan for you. And I mean, she's right. But the liberal plan, my dudes, have we seen this? It's not even like, they're not even doing the green energy transitions. They're not pulling, like, Biden pulled out of Afghanistan, right? Like that happened. No student loan stuff, as Trump brought up. Yeah, like it's a right-wing platform. And Americans are just loving it. People who were protesting for Palestine just a few weeks ago are loving it. As I said months and months and months ago. I warned. Not that anybody watches this, but I warned. Like, liberals will co-opt this movement. They will take it over, and then they will split it. And when push comes to shove, it will split. And there will be like an unbelievable level of people that just don't care, and like they just want to get it over with, and they were never really on board anyways. They just need to present themselves like they care, because they didn't, and they just couldn't go on. They don't want to look bad and like, look at this, it's bad. I'll go to this protest, and then like, I'm telling you, there's so many people that are like that. People who were nowhere to be found on October 8th, but decided it was time to show up, by the time February or March rolled around. After Christmas, when it's warm, after the holidays, several tens of thousands of people have died. Now it's time for liberals to care, right? Now it's a genocide because enough people have died. yeah, this is like the reasoning and rationale of our people. And I'm telling you guys, like, bad things are going to happen, and we will deserve them, like, if we keep doing this. And I assume you don't want that. I assume even people who, like, hate Americans with, like, every reason that they should don't want, like, the American people to, like, suffer for that. But again, like, I don't think that, like, turning the other cheek to genocide means you deserve, like, free healthcare. Like, I don't know if that, like, we need to have real discussions about this. People should not have to care about you if you don't care about them. And if this is a controversial statement, like, feel free to off yourself. Find the nearest noose or gun, because your opinion doesn't matter. I'm trying to elucidate something to you that's a real contradiction. It's American exceptionalism. That's the real issue here. It's thinking that we're special or different, or that we don't need to make the changes that so many other people have had to. And that we can just keep doing wars and genocide, and as long as House of the Dragon Season 3 comes out, I'm not going to care, right? So tell me, why would people like that deserve healthcare, education? Again, I'm not talking about, like, homeless people, right? Like, there's a real argument to be made that, like, even the homeless people in America are labor aristocrats because of what we have here. But I think that's kind of like a stretch. The homeless are definitely some of the worst off here. But man, like, even you know, if Americans show disgust to, like, homeless people and they put up anti-homeless structure, like, what makes you think they're gonna care about anything that they're supposed to? They don't care. And as long as you guys think that they do in any way, I'm like, there are leftist content creators who are like playing with the idea that these are people that we can, you know, that there's potential real change here, and that maybe if something is actually changing, but it's not changing it. I'm telling you, like, I'm like the only person, I swear, who likes insisting this. It's ridiculous. All of this is so ridiculous, unsustainable, bad, problematic in every way.